All right, guys. So we are back for another panel, and so we're going to do a character panel this week. We have not done one in quite a while, and
Yes.
I was a little inspired. So today's panel is going to be on Moonknight. Okay.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
So for those of you who don't know, Moonknight is like one of my favorite characters, and we know that he's going to be portrayed by Oscar Isaac in the Disney Plus. I mean, that's what they've been saying. Disney still hasn't confirmed it, but like we've seen the fight videos of him. Everybody's been doing such amazing art. I don't know if you guys look up this artist named Otto Schmidt. He did a Moonknight piece recently, and he did the likeness of it as Isaac. It looks great. He's got on the suit. It's like really, really good. So I actually saw that, and I just kind of got inspired. So before today, I would
I
have said
really
that,
don't know what kind of like hold you have on
I don't
these
know.
people.
I don't know. I don't know.
How you got
It's just
Oscar Isaac to be one of your favorite characters is so dope.
it's just like, man, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, something in the water. But so but before today I would have said that I was a Moon Knight fan, but I don't think I necessarily would have like said an expert.
Okay.
And so when someone kind of asked me, what would you want to see in the Moon Knight show? I was like, oh, I actually don't really know because a lot of the runs I've read them, but I've only ever read them once. So I kind of took this entire week to just like go back and read everything. I skipped a couple eras. I skipped his era with the West Coast Avengers, and I skipped his era on the Secret Avengers. Not necessarily because I didn't want to read them, I just didn't have time. I did skip the Bendis era of Moon Knight because I don't think anyone should ever read that.
Well, damn.
It is not good. I do not recommend it. It was just like, and like it's one of those things where it's like this is bad, and I only have to read it once, and I never have
It
to
was
read it
so
again.
like the first read you already know
It
like
was a
no
complete.
thanks.
So for those who don't know, Moon Knight suffers from DID, dissociative identity disorder, and so Bendis did it in a way so instead of him having multiple personalities, he used the aliases of other Avengers. So he was like using stuff of Wolverine's, Spider-Man, and Captain America.
Hmm.
It was not good. And he was like talking to them, like they were like voices in his head. It was just like so bad. But the only thing I ever say is good of it is that it brought Moon Knight and Echo together, and I really like. But even and so even then in the book it wasn't good because like Bendis ends up fridging Echo. He kills her.
What?
Yeah, so he like kills her and she dies in it. But it's just like now Moon Knight and Echo have history together. Like they have a relationship that a future writer can build on if they need to. And like I'm just here for that
You
because
want that?
I would yeah, I want that. So the little story she actually had in the Marvel Voices, Indigenous Voices,
Hmm.
one of the pages was like her getting a text from like all the men who she's talked to or like had some type of dealing with. Moon Knight was one of the guys. So
Oh, okay, yeah. I saw that, yeah.
yeah, that was fun. That was cool. But going back,
It makes sense
just
that you
like
would skip over the West Coast Avenger stuff because it's kind of long. That was actually my only introduction with him.
yeah.
I haven't read anything with Moon Knight. I won't even lie to you, except when he was in West Coast Avengers because I did like
Mhm.
that series. But that was like he was in like a lot of issues
Yeah,
of that.
yeah. And so that was my thing. So I was like, I'm already reading like a lot of comic books. Like, I had the Huston run, I had Warren Ellis. There was I actually have my notes here. I'm gonna be like looking down at my notes. And I've been
Okay.
like writing and reading. It's been like a great week. And so again, it's not that those two I didn't necessarily not want to do. I was like, I'm already got a lot here. I kind of want to get the main stuff anyway. I was really just going for like Mark's motivation and his personality
Hmm.
and kind of like what is it. I feel like especially with us over these last few weeks of doing the show and everything, we've kind of come to these realizations with some characters about like, do we actually really like them or do we just like watching them fight, or do we just like this one story arc that happened with them, or
You like this
is it
one
just
iteration of them, yeah.
yeah, it's like do I really like that. And so that's what I wanted to see with Mark, because again I had read the stuff but I'd only read it once. I did realize that my opinion actually changed on a lot of things. A lot of the runs that I previously said I did not like, I ended up liking a lot more. And some of the ones that I felt those though were higher up was not. um, so I'll talk about this run in particular that kind of dropped for me, and that is the Charlie Huston era. This one came out in where's my notes? 2006,
Okay.
and Charlie
Was
Huston
this like
ended.
your first introduction to Moon Knight? Like, what was your like first?
Yes, actually. So I was like, I don't even remember how I picked the book up,
Mm-hmm.
but the issue I distinctly remember was that and now that I said this when I was rereading it, he has this enemy named Bushman,
Okay.
and he rips Bushman's face off with like one of his moon darts.
What? Okay.
And it's like, and I'll never forget reading it for the first time because I was like, wow, what a moment. And like, I was just like, I was just like, wow. I was like, this is so cool. I was like, he just like ripped this guy's face off. I thought it was like the coolest thing in the entire world. But when I read it again recently, I was kind of like, why did he rip his face off like that? I was like, why did they approve this? I was like, this is so violent for like a children's comic book. Joe Quesada era. But no. So actually, let me jump it back a little bit. Let me tell you a little bit about who Moon Knight is. Moon Knight is
Okay.
Marc Spector. He is a Jewish American and who grew up in Chicago. He's from
All right.
Chirac.
Okay. Hey,
Um,
shake that.
right. And so a thing a lot of people don't know is when his character was first introduced, he actually didn't have any type of like mental illness or mental disorder whatsoever. The DID wasn't a thing. The voices that he heard in his head, who would later become his personalities, Stephen Grant and Jake Lockley, were just aliases he had created to like help him do his crime fighting thing. So he was a U.S. Marine. He became a mercenary. On one of the expeditions he was on with the mercenaries, the leader of the group, Raoul Bushman, like betrays them, kind of leaves him for dead, and so he died. It's in Egypt, and so he's underneath the avatar of Khonshu, the moon god, who basically grants him life again. He's like, "I'll bring you back to life. I'll let you live if you be my avatar and like do my bidding." Mark's like, "Sure." Who does, who wants to die?
Yeah. I mean, I would say,
uh,
yeah, I would say, yeah.
it's like, okay. So he like puts on this silver cape or whatever. He goes, fights Bushman, and then he goes on to be this avatar of Khonshu. Stephen, because of the money he's gained as a mercenary, he uses that to be used the Stephen Grant alias, who's like a millionaire. And then he creates the persona of Jake Lockley, who's like a taxi cab driver to help him keep his ear on the streets. And so he kind of like goes through fighting crime, and he also has a little bit of horror elements in there. He fights like some magic creatures every now and again. His first appearance was actually in Werewolf by Night, where he like tries to capture him, and they end up like helping each other though. And so he gets in those type of elements. It wasn't until was it the Huston run? Now that I'm thinking about it, where they introduced the mental illness. It might have been the Dickens one. Whatever. Back to the Huston run really fast. So like again, he rips the face off of Bushman. I think it's the coolest thing in the world back at the time. Reading again, and so I feel like this run is poignant for Mark in the fact that it's one of the times where he really started to get, I guess, a personality. You know, the runs that came before they were good, they were fine, but they were very much reminiscent of '80s comics where it was just villain of the week type of stories, and he's kind of
Hmm.
just like going through the motions. He has his supporting cast. Like this one, it kind of like takes Mark into space where it's a little dark. He's like hooked on pills. He both of both of his legs
It's
are
the
broken.
80s.
Like no, this was the Huston one in 2006.
Oh, oh.
So it's like both of his legs are broken. And so in this fight with Bushman, where he ripped his face off, they like fell off a roof, and like while he was falling off the roof, he like kept hitting all these things, so his legs are broken. This is why he rips Bushman's face off. By the way, he's just like, no, this has got to stop. Um, and Moon Knight's girlfriend, fiance, ex girlfriend, whatever you want to call her, Marlene, she tries to help Mark through it. He's depressed, he's sad, he like hits her. It was like, wow, like this is something that's going on. Mark has a best friend named Jean Paul. They call him Frenchie because he's French. And he's like separated from Mark. He comes out to Mark in this run as gay. And
Oh.
he's helped Mark through the entire time. He's like, why do you think I stuck around you all those years? I'm in love with you. And Mark is like, did everybody else know? And he's like, yeah, Marlene knew, like all these things. So it's like he's at this really low point in his life. Everybody has kind of separated himself from them. He feels like he doesn't know anyone. He's isolated. and it's really depressing. And Mark comes off very unlikable. And I say,
Oh.
yeah. And I think that this has been the hurdle that his character has kind of had to face since that run. Whereas, again, like you just got this guy who's kind of like a douchebag to everybody, and he's just mean and he's nasty and he's also a little bit crazy. And like now he thinks you might have these other personalities coming around, and it's just like, what are you going to do with that? And no one ever really rectifies the chance to make him likable. Instead, they just like keep playing off of like the mental illness aspect. But because of that, everyone takes their own interpretation of it. Again, you get something like Bendis, which is like so crazy and far out there that he starts taking on the personality of other heroes. Or you get into like the Bendis run, which came a little bit later, which was something when I first read, I thought I really enjoyed because it injected some humor into Mark. And I was like, oh, this was needed for his character. But going back and reading it again, the type of humor he has, it just doesn't feel natural. It's like I can't think of like it's not funny.
Well,
Or he makes like he makes like really corny jokes a lot, and it's just like this guy is just not the type of person.
like a Deadpool.
Yeah,
Mm.
a little bit, and it's just like that's not who
That
he is.
doesn't fit him. Yeah.
So it doesn't work. So and it felt strange coming off of the Lemire run, which I actually really, really enjoyed. I felt like that was probably the run that they also might pull from for the show, just because it really took a deeper look at like the mental illness. So the story now is that Khonshu did in fact bring Mark back to life. Like that happened.
Mm-hmm.
He also has DID, and
Okay.
so both things are true now, pretty much. And so a lot of writers have been trying to kind of pull as those like, yes, he definitely has the DID, but is Khonshu real? And it's kind of like, yes, like let's stop going back and forth with that. Like we've had like we've had him like
We've established that now.
we've established he's real. He's attacking cities. He's doing all this stuff. Like he's real. And so Lemire kind of like really played up on that. He was like, okay, we get he's real, but let's actually talk about Mark's mental illness and like how he's going to deal with that because he can't properly deal with Khonshu until he's dealt with these personalities of himself. And he gets him to a point of acceptance, and there's like kind of a finality in the story, which is like really satisfying. And then Bemis comes right after, and it just doesn't feel the same. It's again like he takes him to this. He starts using the personalities in a way that just doesn't feel real. He kind of starts like calling on them like superpowers almost.
Mm.
It's like the Jake Lockney persona is supposed to be like the aggressive one. So if he's losing a fight, he's like, "Oh, Jake, come out," and it's just like,
That sounds to me like he's like tapping into Legion territory.
yeah, and it's like that's not what this
That's not,
is.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was just really. He also gives Moonknight a daughter in that run, which like I'm not really a fan of kids. She's fine. Like the girl actually is fine. Like her whole thing is like, oh, and so that was like one of the other things. Mark doesn't know the kid exists because one of the other personalities had sex with Marlene, so he like doesn't remember. Um,
Huh. Okay. That's an
it
interesting
was it
story.
was. I'm just thinking about it again. Like, yeah, it's going a lot lower than I thought. But nonetheless, nonetheless, like again, I appreciate that he tried to do something different for Mark. I also appreciate that he introduced like a lot of different villains. He also tapped into the Egyptian pantheon a little bit more for Mark, which is something that I've always kind of wanted to see. And that was really good. The Huston run, I have to go back to that also. So, I said earlier that Frenchie reveals to Mark that he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Huston was just trying to make like a commentary or if he was just like really angry when he writes this. Because when I tell you that they get gay bashed like multiple times in this run,
Jesus. Okay.
it's like I was like reading it. So the first time I read it, so like what happens is if people find out Mark is Moon Knight or they have some type of inclination for it, they always go after Marlene or Frenchie because those are like the two people who are closest to him. His Jake Lockley persona has a very close relationship with this black woman named Gina and like her two sons. And like she owns a diner, so like Mark is friends with like all the people in the diner there. It's actually like really nice. I think they'll be used in the show. Ray has potential to be Moon Knight's black MCU best friend, so it's like you might see that. Yeah,
you know they love that.
yeah, so they always go after like Frenchie or Marlene. And so this happens. And so like Mark goes to see Frenchie. Frenchie lets him know he's gay. Then like the next day, all these people come into the restaurant Frenchie owns and like beat him up with like, and they like break his legs.
Oh my. Oh my. Jeez.
And so like Marlene comes to Moon Knight and she's like, "You're an idiot." She's like, "Frenchie's dying in the hospital," and Mark's like, what do I have to do with any of this? She's like, "You think he just gets beat senselessly like the day after you see him, like out of nowhere?" She's like, "What's your problem?" And so again, earlier in this run, Mark had his own legs broken. And so while Marlene's yelling at him, he's standing up and she's like, "Frenchie's about to die." He's like, "Marlene, I'm standing." And she's like, "You son of a bitch." And it's just like he's just like he's such a nasty guy in this one. It's just like you are so selfish and a bastard, and it's like this is why no one likes you.
Right. Like your friend is dying.
Like he's dying. And so Frenchie eventually gets better on that. Frenchie like loses his legs, but he gets these like yes, it was a lot. And so he gets like these cybernetic new leg things later on. And so something else happens. Frenchie has a boyfriend. Some more people come into the restaurant. I guess they're looking for Frenchie. They start hitting some woman. And like the boyfriend goes to go save the woman. So then they beat the boyfriend up. And like he almost gets beat to death.
Child, what the hell is going on in these Moon Knight runs? What is...
This is just the one run. This is just the Charlie Huston run. So I was like, I don't know what was going on. And so like he beats the boyfriend up. So then the boyfriend's like in the hospital. So it's like, okay, finally they're over that. And then I'm like reading still. I get to another issue. Him and the boyfriend are like walking down the street, and like two guys come up and start just like calling them the F slur. He's just
like 2006.
Yes,
I think this was okay. That makes sense. That early 2000s, like mid 2000s, representation of like gay stuff was all like everything was gay fashion.
I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, this is really bad. I was like, why? And I was like, I think it's so interesting now to read comics from the past and the mindset of like how comics were written then and like how people read them and what they read versus like now, because you're not gonna the words that I saw in this comic book.
Child.
and so like I was reading, I was like physically taken aback. I was like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe you just said that. I was like, who publishes this?
Was it a Max series? Because I know, don't they have Marvel like Max series, and then they're allowed to like curse and stuff in it?
So I don't remember it being a part of like the Max or Marvel Knights imprint. Moon Knight's one of those characters who's always kind of like been along those lines. He's been there with them, but I think this was just like
in the comic book stores.
Yeah, this is just the comic book. Okay. He fights the Thunderbolts later on in the run, and Songbird saves Moonstone from something, and she's like, "Yeah, you owe me one, bitch." And it was just like, damn, what was that for? Like, yeah. And then he fights Bullseye later on, and like Bullseye's like looking for him, and he's like, "Oh, you're running." He's like, "I didn't think you had bitch in your repertoire." And I was just like, y'all are like really like going in. I was like, somebody is mad while they're writing this comic book. It was. I laughed. It was. So that was actually like really interesting. Let me go back to my notes. Best run hands down is Warren Ellis run, 2014.
I've actually heard that myself. About
like
that Moon Knight run is the Warren Ellis
hands down. Ellis kind of came in and helped reinvigorate the character. I think he's probably the one who made I don't even know where I'm going with that. Like it was the best run. Just he still didn't make Mark likable. I'll say that. I don't really. Again, I think writers have really struggled to make him likable because he doesn't really have motivation. It's just kind of like he's just doing it.
Is he a mercenary?
I was like he was a mercenary, so it's like you don't really necessarily think he's a great guy. Um, but he also doesn't like aspire to be a hero. He's like, I'm just out here. Like that's why he's able to fight the way he does and do the things he do. He's like, I truly don't care. Like if I kill these people, he has this villain named the Black Spector. He like throws him off a roof during a parade. It's all on camera.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care. He's like, I just want to keep the streets safe. Like, I just want these people to be safe. Like, I don't care how you do it. But it's not like super aggressive, like a Punisher way, where he's running around with like a shotgun and blowing off people's faces. Like, he's very much going after like a lot of weird, dangerous things. Like I said, he played in like that horror element. One of his villains of this Warren Ellis run was a guy who was like killing people and then like putting their body parts on him. So it's like the people he's fighting.
He was putting
like,
them on himself.
Yeah, he was like sewing them in.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like he gotta die. It's just like you can't.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you can't like Punisher's going around like killing some guy who just stole some bread from the grocery store. Moon Knight's not doing that. That's not his own.
He's just ripping off faces.
Yes. But the Warren Ellis run kind of also like it went with the mindset of like Khonshu is real. Okay. He did infect you with like this god virus thing that makes you kind of like go through these motions, but you also do have DID. And some of the stuff that you go through is very crazy. And so he also creates the Mr. Knight persona, which is the iconic new white suit that we've seen a lot of people drawing and doing. Mm-hmm. Declan Shalvey designed that, and shout out to him because it completely changed the game for Moon Knight. Like I truly feel like if that design was not a part of that book, it would not have been as successful as it was.
I do
even with Warren Ellis attached.
Outside of that, the one costume that he has, the more armored looking one, that's like black. It's all black with the white chest piece.
Shalvey also designed that one.
Oh well, there we go.
Yeah. Like,
okay, well then I was gonna say the only other like iconic costume I could think of is that one.
Yeah.
And the white suit. That's cool.
He did both of those specifically for that series. So in it, Moon Knight actually wears like three different costumes. He wears the white suit, the one with the black on it, and he has like this bone Khonshu armor that he puts on when he fights these ghosts. Mm-hmm. And that's really great. But it's only 6 issues. They're one and done issues, so it's just like one story, but like each one is packed with a lot of like story, character, and like the action. Warren Ellis is like a master at writing action. I don't know if you've ever seen like Castlevania, or read.
Watch that, actually.
You should watch it. It's just like like his Secret Avengers run that he did. A lot of stuff he even did like with the X-Men. Just he's got a really great sense of action and just like putting things together, and he like shows that with Moon Knight and his writing. And Shalvey's art just like blows it out of the water. Like Declan was amazing on it. There's this one issue where he's going to save this little girl, and he's literally walking up like a bunch of flights of steps, and he's just beating people up along the way.
Oh my gosh, I've seen this.
Yeah.
I've seen this posted like a bunch online of I think it was around the time when Daredevil, the Netflix TV series, was on, and people were talking about his whole hallway fight and how people were hoping that if they eventually did a Moon Knight series, that Moon Knight got his same kind of thing.
Let me tell you, if Moon Knight gets his little flight scene, I'm going to scream. Like the entire time, I'm going to scream. Like you will hear me screaming because that's what I'm going to be doing. It's everything. It's everything. And so he only did 6 issues on the book, and then Brian Wood actually came up and took over a few issues. And his art brought in Greg Smallwood. And like I will actually say, outside of Declan, Greg Smallwood and Bill Skywood. Greg Small was like one of my favorite Moon Knight artists. He actually did the art for the Lemire run, and it is fantastic. Like absolutely fantastic. Just beautiful stuff. He's got like kind of a little bit of a painted style.
Google search and I do like it. Yeah.
It's nice. Very nice. Brian Will was fine. Cullen Bunn also did a couple of issues. They were fine. I think they again kind of stayed on the trajectory of what Warren Ellis had did with like one and done stories and just making them quick and like delving into Mark. But like hands down, number one. There was how did you feel about him in West Coast Avengers?
I actually really liked him in West Coast Avengers.
Okay.
Yeah, he was fun. That's actually where my own introduction with him was. Had been doing a bunch of rereading of stuff because kind of like what you said about Moon Knight is how I felt about Wonder Man, where I've always been a big fan, but I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an expert. So I've been going back and reading a bunch of his old stuff. And the West Coast Avengers stuff with Moon Knight, where he's very brutal.
Yeah.
I was actually like, when they were like out fighting people, like he has to be like told to not break somebody's like leg or something, or like kind of take it.
He don't care. He's like I'm gonna kill you.
There were quite a few issues where I was like, oh my gosh, he does not care. It was interesting to see there was a relationship he was having with Tigra that they started to try to have, but they made it where it was a do they really like each other, or is it their like god things? Because I think Tigra is like from like a cat god or something like that, and
she's kind of gross. I'm not really a fan of Tigra.
Yeah, I don't really think she's that great either. But it was interesting to see of her, like, does she like Moon Knight, or is it the whole cat thing, like yearning for the moon? If it was like that kind of thing, I thought that was kind of interesting. I haven't finished the series yet, so I'm gonna see where all that goes. I assume based off of what I've been learning right now,
I don't think anyone's ever even. I don't even think anyone's ever brought that up. Like his relationship with her. Like I'm thinking, like again, I'm just thinking about everything I've just been reading over the last few days. I'm like, no, there's been no mention of her.
They truly like completely forgot all about it, and like it was a significant thing.
I mean, most people honestly tend to only do Marlene. Like Marlene is like the one for him. But the thing with Marlene is that even when people put her in runs, it's always that she's mad at him and she's trying to separate herself from him because she's like, no, you're crazy. She's like, you got some problems and you need to like get help, and until you get help, I don't want to be around you. So it's like she comes in, she's mad, and then she leaves. On the original series, she's probably around the most, which was also very good. Doug Moench and Bill Skynowitz does art for it.
Oh, nice.
He does good Moon Knight. The way he draws the cape and does the crescent effect a lot throughout, iconic. The covers, iconic.
What is your favorite? What is your favorite like Moon Knight design?
So,
do you prefer the white suit, or do you prefer the like all white costume? Do you prefer the one I think is cool is the one that's
I do love the original all white suit costume. I have a bit of I won't lie, I go through some issues with it because it can feel a little bit like Klan-esque sometimes, and it's just
looking at it now, I just googled it
it gives Klan vibes sometimes, so it's kind of like, but it's like it's the moon, so, and then some writers try and they've tried to like say sometimes that it's not really white, it's like silver. Okay. It's supposed to be like a really light silver, like kind of gray type of situation going. So it's like, but I do like the original design a lot. Again, the white suit, I do love the white suit. I think that's fantastic. I feel like that's going to get adapted into the show for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. You don't have Oscar Isaac do it and not put him in a suit.
Okay.
I mean, come
Okay.
on.
That man's gonna look good. He's
You
gonna
got
look
a nice
good.
short king in a suit.
Oh, he is short, isn't he? I love that for him. Um,
Right.
both the suits that Declan did, the black one, and so there's this one run, Vengeance of Moonknight, written by Greg Hurwitz, that actually has art from Jerome Opina. It was actually like one of his first early Marvel works. He kind of Mark had this like armored version of his suit that they specifically said was silver. They let you know specifically they're like, this is silver. Um, that one was really nice because he got to do some other things. He was like on a very big hero binge on that one. He fights this. Well, he doesn't fight the Sentry, but he like has a moment with the Sentry, who's like, you're
Century, the one he ripped Ares in half. Century.
yes, because
Okay,
this was during the era of like the Dark Avengers.
got it.
So like Sentry was a big deal, and so like Moon Knight was a hero, and so Sentry comes up to Moon Knight and he's like, "I'm watching you. Like, I'm crazy. You're crazy. We can both be crazy if you wanted to be."
Interesting.
And
The sun and the moon.
yeah, so like they had a little moment. We never see him again in the book, but
Mm.
they had that. Then it kind of that runs also kind of up and down. It's nice, but it doesn't really do too much for Mark. We see some of his relationship with the Secret Avengers, which I thought was cool. Moon Knight kind of deals with like being the loner type of character, so he
Yeah.
doesn't have many friends. And this is one of those runs that tried to rectify that and making him have like close relationships with those Secret Avengers characters,
Hmm.
because in the main book they weren't really close. um, So Widow liked him. Captain America likes him. So I think that says something.
Who would you want him to be friends with? Or are you okay with him being more of the loner? Like he could just be often by himself.
I'm cool with him being by himself and like occasionally coming out and being like, "Which I need help with."
Okay.
Yeah, and he can just be like, "Which I need help." I would like to see Echo come back. I won't lie,
Okay.
but that's just
That's just your own bias. Yeah.
that's just me. I would like to see Echo
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah.
If he had to have a friend, I think he would get him and Black Widow got along. So,
Okay.
but who? I mean, she kind of gets along with everybody now that I think about it.
She don't have to be with nobody like that. She.
She's kind of like a people person. Good for her. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess she's a spy. You gotta
Yeah.
be. Um. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, I'm kind of fine with him just being like, I'll come out when the big stuff is going down to help you guys out, but leave me to do my thing because I'm gonna do it.
Mhm. Now, where do you want to see like Moon Knight go? It,
So
'Cause there seems to be some rumblings of a new series coming. So, what do you want to see for Moon Knight?
So one thing I definitely want to see that they did a little bit in the Ellis run is he kind of did a lot of detective work, and I know it doesn't really help with the Batman comparisons that he's faced a lot, but like whatever, it was great. It makes sense. He's kind of like like he's a smart guy. Like he's a marine and the mercenary and like a boxer, and he's done like he should like know how to look for things and like have these kind of like tactical abilities and skill sets. So I would like to see a lot more detective work. I would like them to stick with the kind of weird crime angle that he faces. I think I've talked about this a lot, like on Twitter and stuff. Again, even like what I was just saying in the Ellis run, like the serial killer was killing people and then like sewing their body parts into him. He fights like there was an issue in the original run where he actually teams up with like Doctor Voodoo because he's like
Oh,
fighting. Yeah, he's like he like fights stuff along those type of spectrums. There's like some weird death
so he
cult.
deals with like more like the occult kind of stuff.
Yeah, like occult, supernatural horror. Like there's actually like in the Bemis run there's a murder cult who's like after him. They're all serial killers, and so they just join together so they can like kill people. Like those are the type of people he fights. Uh,
Okay.
so I would like him to kind of stick around with that. Really see a lot of detective work. If we keep him in line of like the monsters and things like that, I want the monsters to go like full Lovecraftian, like make him big,
Okay.
make him ugly. Like let's get crazy. Like if he's gonna be in the world, like fully immerse him in the world. Um, Obviously we're gonna continue the aspect of the DID. I think I would like to stay along the Lemire lines of that it is a part of him. He accepts it. He knows but he's still kind of a little bit more in control of it, so he can just like do what he needs to do. I don't think he has to be like burdened by it. Frenchie, Marlene, obviously are probably going to be a part of it in some form of fashion. I would like it for Winston to not hate him. I think that would be an interesting turn of events, especially now that he has the daughter. If we're going to keep it. I don't mind if the daughter gets written out of history, but that doesn't really happen too often. So she's cool. She wants to be a hero.
Oh, does she want to be like a street level hero like him or something? Or
yeah, she like draws him this picture in one of the issues, and she's like, "Oh, look, this is me and you saving the world." She's like, "I'm gonna be Moon Girl," and he tells her, he's like, "There's already a Moon Girl." And she's like, "All right, fine." Yeah, he's like, "There's already a Moon." Mark. So Mark loves black people. Like, that is one thing I will say. He's got a lot of black folks in his corner. Okay,
that's right.
Like those are his people. So he's like, "There's already Moon Girl." She's like, "That's fine." I mean, that could actually be a nice little motivation for him for the new series to kind of, I guess, put him in a new direction. Is like, "Oh, I finally got someone who wants to be like me. I had to be a little bit different." He's had a sidekick before. His name was Moonknight, but he also kind of like went crazy and turned on Mark and tried to kill him. So, you know, him having, if the daughter's going to stay around, I wouldn't mind seeing that type of relationship be built up. I think my thing with kids in the Marvel universe is that they just either get stuck in their kids forever, or we have to go through some weird time jump thing to get them to be some type of appropriate age. Very rarely do the kids get to age. I think maybe like Cassie Lang is a rare example of a kid who's like getting to be older and their father still gets to stay around. But I also think that's because Scott was like middle aged.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, really can't think of too many other characters where the child got to kind of naturally age. You know.
And they still get to like be and I think, and that's always a thing, because it's like once you start to age the kid up, you have to start actually aging your hero, and no one ever actually fully wants to replace the hero. So it's like you think about like Batman and Damian, like how are they going to handle that situation? Like, because DC ages their characters up. Like they let them age. So it's like, but you guys are not going to be able to let Damian get to a point where he's an adult of any form of fashion, and we're still going to believe that Bruce is running around as Batman.
They're probably never going to let him be like Nightwing aged.
Yeah, unless again you do a thing like they did with Superman and John, where we go through some time jump.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I hate those. I don't like time travel.
Time travel is
it's not.
You know, I don't like it. It's up there with alternate universe.
I will say, I think people are going to like Moon Knight after the show. I think the Oscar Isaac effect will have a lot to do with it. I think that when I think of Disney Plus and what it's doing with a lot of these other Marvel shows right now and how it's giving us deeper look into these characters, I think they can do a very like poignant take on mental health and just like mental illness like in the MCU. And if they handle that and do it correctly, like that could be like really well received. Again, Oscar Isaac can act, so it's like if they go that route, it'll look great. I think the action is going to be intense. Moon Knight is a character that is about action. He fights. Like, he can fight.
He does fight. He does fight.
The training videos that we've seen of Oscar look really good also.
Yeah, he's being ass in that.
It's great. And if we get a new series, I think that's my thing. Like, I want to keep the detective work. I want to see like the weird crime. I just would like to see someone kind of really find a way to make Mark a little bit more likable and motivated. Like, cool, we get it. You were resurrected by the gods, so you had to like do his bidding for a long time. Then you got to a point where it's like, okay, I actually don't have to do what you want to say. I can do my own thing. I do want to keep the street safe, but I don't necessarily want to be a hero. So it's like, okay, well, why do you want to keep these streets safe then? That's what we can know.
hopefully we get some more established motivations then in his next run. He's had a lot of them, and
A lot. I did a lot of comic book reading.
yeah, he has a whole lot of runs. So clearly there's a market for him if they keep shelling out the runs.
I mean, they tend to last for like a decent amount of time. I think there's even like some commentary in one of the issues where he says it. He's like, I'm like a B-list character. He's just like, I'm on the B-list. It's like people kind of know who I am. I do what I do. It's like I have my moments, but you're not calling on me all the time. And I love that. I love that type of stuff. I love it. We know where we stand.
Being that kind of self-aware is fantastic. So best way to be. All right. Well, let's take a break and then we will come back for relaunches.
Ow. All right. We are